Arguably the most important part of every Skylanders game is the gimmick. This is what makes it new, this is what makes it different, this is why everyone wants to play it. And with Skylanders 7, which never came out, what gimmick should they have gone with? I think there's a few different options, so in this video I'm going to be going over the gimmicks that I would have wanted to see, and I'm going to explain pretty much my ideas, and some of them aren't my ideas, for what I think the gimmick could have been if Skylanders 7 ever came out. So let's get into it with the first gimmick. So the first one is one that I've actually thought about for a long time, but I've never really made a video about it. I've been thinking of this as an idea for Skylanders 7's gimmick for a very long time. Like, it's been years that I have had this idea in the back of my mind, but I've never really put it out anywhere publicly. And this is the idea of having basically past, present, and future versions of Skylanders. So I'm going to use Wildfire as an example, just because he's my favorite Skylander, and he's one that I feel like I could use as a pretty good example of what I'm trying to get across here. This is basically going to be each Skylander comes out, and in the game you can switch between the past, present, and future version of a Skylander. So with Wildfire, maybe his past version is he is silver, like he hasn't gotten his full gold paint job yet. Maybe he has a metal shield, he hasn't become a trap master yet, he hasn't gotten his traptanium shield yet, and then maybe he's, you know, just not as powerful as he is in the present. And then maybe his future version is him sort of rusted away, he's older, maybe his shield's broken or shattered or cracked or something like that. Maybe he has battle scars. I think that would be really cool. And the idea of having different moves based on which sort of age or time you're in, I think would be really cool. As far as the name of this gimmick, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of different ideas that I've had, sort of like time jumpers or era hoppers or age jumpers or time shifters. I mean, there's a lot of different things you could go for it. So I think the name is something that, I mean, there's a lot of different ideas that you could use. There's a lot of cool names you could actually give this game that I think would sound pretty enticing. But this is a gimmick that I've thought about for a while. I think as far as figures go, if they wanted to be really greedy, they could release different figures for the past, present, and future forms of each Skylander. But I don't think this is a good idea. I think the best idea would just be to release each Skylander, and then in-game you can swap between the past, present, and future versions of them. Maybe it's like a soul gem for each one, I'm not totally sure. Or maybe, you know, there's the upgrade pads that are between the past, present, and future. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of different ways you could do this, and I haven't thought about it too much to get like the exact logistics straight for exactly how I'd want it to work in game. But I think being able to swap between these different versions would be really cool, and a really cool gimmick that people would really like, and that would be really enticing, and be able to give new Skylanders different forms, because I think this game should have reposes and new Skylanders. So if they brought back reposes, we'd be able to see past and future versions of our favorite Skylanders as well as new Skylanders. So I think that'd be the best way to do it, this gimmick. Now this next one is actually not my idea. It was created by someone in my Discord server who's pretty prevalent in my community. Their name is Ryza. They're very awesome on my streams all the time. He basically posted in my server this idea, which is like Skylanders tag team, which I think would be really cool. I'll show the message on the screen right now, you can read it if you want, but I think this is really cool. It's basically like you can swap between these Skylanders as you're playing, and sure, some people say it might be too similar to Trap Team, but I really don't think so, because I think if I were to do it, I would say you can play as like, there's a couple different ways you could do it. Like, look at Smash Bros, for example. If you look at Ice Climbers, you're using both of them at the same time, and their attacks sort of work together. But then if you look at someone like Pokemon Trainer, you're literally switching it between different Pokemon. So it could either work one of two ways like that. And then I think a Sky Chi attack, something like that, where you have both of them come in and do some like crazy team up attack where they do just a ton of damage and, you know, wipe the screen absolutely clean of enemies, would be insanely awesome. And I think having these tag teams would be really sick, because we could have tag team Skylanders from previous games. Like, imagine if they brought back, you know, Blast Zone and Countdown as a tag team. Like, that sounds awesome. Or Trigger Happy and Pop Fizz would be super cool too. Like, there's a lot of tag teams that I think people would want to see. Maybe even something like Crypt King and Fiesta. I'm just throwing out random ideas. Or Spyro and Cinder. Like, there's a lot of really cool ideas that they could do with this tag team gimmick, and I think switching between them on the fly would be pretty cool. But I honestly think it might work better if we're playing it with two of them at once. That way they can have new sort of special moves that would work like together. Like, if you're using having, or even if they're different element Skylanders, you can have these different like combo elemental attacks and stuff. That would be really cool. And then if they made new Skylanders for this game, which they obviously should, they shouldn't just do tag teams of old Skylanders. That seems really lazy. If they made new Skylanders, they could pretty much do whatever they wanted with those, make them whatever elements, and make them design around tag team. And maybe the old Skylanders as tag teams, you'd be able to play as both of them at once, so with the sort of ice climbers example that I gave earlier. But maybe with the new Skylanders with the tag teams, you switch them out, so you're only using one at a time, sort of how the Pokemon trainer example that I used earlier works. So I think that would actually be really cool, and I think this would be a really cool way to experience the game. Obviously, I don't think there should be any sort of timer or anything. I think that was pretty stupid with the villains from Trap Team to have a timer on them, so I think that's something that I would not want to see at all. You should be able to use them for as long as you want and switch them out on the fly. I think this would be an absolutely awesome gimmick, and there's so much they could explore with this. I also think the figures would look super cool. Like 2 Skylanders on one base together would be absolutely awesome, and there's so many cool poses you could put them in. I think this would be super cool, bringing back old Skylanders and new ones as these team up Skylanders that have these crazy powerful super moves. Would be super awesome. It's something I definitely want to see. Now, the last one is something that I've actually heard quite a few people talk about. This might have been what Trap Team was going to originally be, but this is swappable weapons. I think when Imaginators came out with battle classes that made pretty much every Skylander have one type of weapon, or not, there's like pretty much every Skylander is going to have 1 of 10 given weapon types. You're not going to have any Skylanders that are sort of outside of that. And I was like, man, swappable weapons could really be cool. Like between like a Wolfgang, Buckshot, and Robo, if you could swap around their bows, that would be really cool and give them different weapons, and maybe they have their own special effects. But I think swappable weapons would be something really cool. And I think if they continued with battle classes in Skylanders 7, these swappable weapons would be really, really sick. I think this would be absolutely awesome. And you could also see, just looking at the Trap Masters, like based on all their massive crystal weapons, that like it would have definitely made sense if they were going to have like swappable weapons at first, because pretty much any Trap Master is going to look really cool with any of the Traptanium weapons, and I think this gimmick would have worked awesome. If they went into Skylanders 7, I think they should definitely plan the Skylanders designs based on having weapons that are going to be swappable, and I think the figures would be really cool too. I think if they use some sort of technology, sort of similar to swappers, with just magnets that will allow the NFC to sort of, will allow it to still be able to attack, to detect what parts are attached to what weapons are being used with any given Skylander, I think it could work really well. I'm not sure how much of a challenge that would be technologically to have the weapons be able to scan in when only the figure's base is on the portal, but I think they could do it if they manage to get it working with swappers. I think this would be really cool, and I think having old Skylanders returning with reposes with weapons that are now detachable and swappers and swappable with other Skylanders would be really cool, because there's Skylanders that were previously, obviously in previous games before Imaginators, that seem like they fit into battle classes pretty clearly. You take someone like Crypt King, he's obviously a knight. You take someone like Ninjini, she's obviously a swashbuckler with her 2 swords. So maybe they repose some of these gimmick landers and make them sort of able to have swappable weapons and swap around with other Skylanders. That would be absolutely awesome. I think a lot of people would really like that. This would be a just cool gimmick overall, and then in game, obviously, it would be really cool to see your Skylander with different weapons. I don't know how hard that would be to develop and how much time that would actually use to be able to have these different Skylanders using different weapons in game. Like if you're going to take, if there's 30 Skylanders, let's say, for each Skylander you have to be able to use them with all 30 weapons. Like that might be a lot of work for Toys for Bob or whoever would end up making this game. I don't even know at this point, because I don't know if Toys for Bob is still up or what's going on with them, but this would be a really cool idea and something that I definitely want to see. I think it would be really sick, and this is something that a lot of people have talked about. This is definitely an idea that's been out there for a while. As I previously mentioned, I think it was originally what Trap Team is going to be, but I'm not totally sure about that. But a lot of people seem to believe that theory, so this would be really cool to have Skylanders with swappable weapons, and that is my last idea. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure to tell me what your guys' ideas are for a Skylanders 7 gimmick, and what you guys think of my ideas. Obviously, these are not my ideas. Like, one of them is my idea, one of them is from a member of my community who I thought had a really good idea, and one of them is a pretty much idea that's been in the community for a while, that people have been talking about forever, that's sort of been out there, and I just want to sort of cover it, give my thoughts. But if you guys agree with these, tell me what you like about them, and tell me what you don't like about them, what wouldn't work, or if there's something like the figures or how they'd work in game that I wasn't super clear about, that I said, hey, maybe I'm not too sure how this would work. Please let me know what you think about how that could work in game, and let me know if there are any other gimmicks you guys would like to see, because maybe I'll make another video if you guys give me some cool ideas. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.